and his business started in 1999. So this guy has lots of experience and he is very well versed in what he does for a living. So that is why we have him here today to promote and help you guys with tone, how to stop chasing and start attracting new customers. So I'm going to pass it to Jason, and just remember that all the questions can be in the chat box. I will be monitoring that so we can get those over to Jason. So I am going to give it to Jason and hope you guys enjoy.
Gabby, thank you so much. That was a great intro. I want to segue a little bit off that and say tone developed out of a need that I started to see for, as you had mentioned, I do SEO and exposure work, helping clients online. I noticed a lot of times we would help a client spend a ton of money to get a visitor there. And if the visitor, for whatever reason, which most people aren't ready to buy at that moment, that was it, and we lost them. So what do we do when we have these longer cycle sales and we really need to develop a relationship? How do we do that? So tone evolved from there. And why don't we go ahead and jump over to the slide deck? I'll do a screen share. And you let me know when this shows up. Can everybody see that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, great. Tone, how to stop chasing and start attracting new clients. There we go. Okay. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, why chasing is bad and why it doesn't work, how all relationships tend to follow a path, what is tone, this system that I keep talking about, and that is the title of the book, how you can apply tone to develop your own customer attraction system, and examples. I think this is going to be a part you guys really enjoy, examples of tone being used in the community by local businesses, many of whom are chamber members. First, a little bit about me. I'm a father of two boys, and raising them to be great young men is something that's very important to me. I'm directionally challenged. If we were doing the Amazing Race, you would not want me on your team. I'm a lefty. I'm a prolific note taker. I take acres and acres of notes and almost never go back and reread them. I don't know if any of you guys are the same. List maker extraordinaire, and believe in GHR. It's my own personal philosophy of go out there, push the limits. And if you're not getting humbled regularly by something you're attempting to do or trying to do, you're not living life right. So let's go to our next slide here. I don't know why I'm having problems advancing here with these. So here's the book this entire presentation is founded on. Tone came out in about 95, and it quickly shot up to number 50,026 on the marketing books bestseller list. So I'm not necessarily being recognized in grocery stores for this particular piece of work, but there are a lot of valuable pieces in it that I hope to share with you, ways that I see it working for clients. Chasing is bad. Chasing is bad. It doesn't work. When we feel like we're being chased by somebody who is trying to establish a business relationship with us, it never feels good. Our walls go up, our defenses go up. Now, what does that do? For the person being chased, as I've mentioned, you feel a little bit like you want to take a step back. You want to put a wall up. Maybe you start avoiding. For the pursuer who may have a really good product, it doesn't feel good either. You're chasing, you're starting to not get your calls answered, or maybe people are avoiding you. And so they're afraid that they're going to be sold. So this whole approach doesn't tend to work. And in some cases it can, but that tends to be a shorter type sales cycle item, or something where there's not quite as much risk involved. But building new customer relationships is a process, not an advertisement. Now, before those of you who sell media, which I also sell media, don't take this the wrong way. There's a huge place for advertising, but I believe what people tend to promote is the wrong thing. Connecting the dots. Any type of substantial relationship-based sale has a number of points that we go through. The need starts way back here and then tracks through different exposures, information, things being provided. And the system that I created here recognizes that. And so we work on ways to better facilitate it, invite it, and plan for it. This is what your business looks like to somebody who's not working with you yet. You don't realize it because you're comfortable, but a lot of times for somebody who's not yet working with you, you are on the top of a cliff. Maybe they haven't used a service like yours before. Maybe they have questions. They feel uneducated, maybe a little bit silly for the type of questions that they're going to ask. Maybe they're wondering, can this business really help me? Can they do what it is that they say that they're going to do? Our job through the tone system is to build this series of steps that people can climb to safely get to our business. Now, you say, well, I don't have that series of steps built out yet, but people find my business. Fish jump in the boat too. There are times when people are just ready or they've made their own path. I call them vaulters. And the truth is that that's a really good sign if you don't actively go out and nurture clients, but they're still coming to you. All that means is that with a deliberate system, which nurtures people, you can have even more business. Here's an example, and I see this over and over again for things that I bought personally. I do a search on the web, I find an article. That article then leads me to the website. I visit the website. I check out a few of their videos or their information, see some work. Maybe I'll opt in to receive something, give them my email address. And at that point, I'm usually ready for the free consultation. I think a lot of people say, well, I nurture, I offer a free consultation. It's no risk. Oftentimes to a customer, there is a perceived risk in a consultation. I'm one-on-one with you. And I don't want to have to reject or say no, because that doesn't feel good either for the buyer. I really don't tend to want to waste anybody's time until I'm pretty darn sure that they can help me. So the request for a free consultation is actually a step further down that path. Pretend this was Mount Everest. There are people who will scale it themselves and navigate. But if you know the waypoints, if you know the path, and having done business to this point, you should have a series of common obstacles that people have prior to working with you. Hey, I wanted to hire you. I was thinking about it, but I just wasn't sure if you could help me, or I wasn't sure if you knew my type of business. Start to write these things down, because these tend to be obstacles. And yes, you want to promote your business, you want to teach and educate people, but a lot of selling is simply removing obstacles. So if you can guide them through this process towards doing business with you, you should be able to get a better result. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. Part of the icons are covering it up for me. Nod of heads. Can we see this here on the right, or do you guys see the... Okay, maybe it's just me that's seen them all. This is the tone map. The very beginning, we start with target. I like that because we want to define our target and determine who it is that we typically want to speak to. You can do that, frankly, a lot of times by looking at customers that you've worked with in the past and had great success with. Offer development, nurture and follow up, and then finally, exposure. I come back to that exposure again because so often somebody's entire marketing is just exposure, exposure. If I put my name in front of them enough times, well, yes, that can work. It is expensive, and there's a more efficient way to do it that still uses exposure and still allocates funds to exposure, maybe even more, because it can work better. But that's the map. And so we take that map and I want to explain here that the reason why it works so well and why relationships have to be understood is because we all emerged from tribes. And a lot of the fundamentals in this system that we're going to be exploring kind of go deep within um, our DNA and how we emerge to develop relationships amongst people. It's going to show you why certain things work. And I want that to remain in the back of the mind. We're gonna come back to this. But let's take a look at Target. Who do you most want to work with? It's a key question. What customers in the past have been most profitable or most successful for your business? Who are you uniquely qualified to work with? It may have more to do with your own set of experiences and how it lends you to bond with a certain audience that other people can't. Where do you have an advantage? Who do you relate to best? And then there's also the other elements like age, sex, title, industry. In my own example, which I put a little note there so I didn't forget, I've noticed over time that I work with a lot of guys in industrials. And I say guys, there probably will be women that I end up working with also in that segment, but a lot of men in industrials. Why? Well, they do really well. They make a lot of money when they send people out on service calls. I can help them generate more service calls, and they tend to be a little bit lagging in the tech side, so they need help with that. And I can come in and help them, and they can see a return fairly quickly. The competition, we can usually take them apart, and that's just over time. When I look back, I said, gosh, these guys have been with me for a super long time, and they continue to be very happy with the work. So that helps me because now I can gear my messaging more towards them. This is just a slide to summarize title, age, business size, industry, geography. Next, we get to the offer. A lot of people think when they think offer, they hear, oh, business offer. What's an offer? Well, I'm offering 2 for 1 on this or a special deal. No, in this particular case, the offer, I'll illustrate it in another slide. The offer brings them out towards you. What are they going to respond to that can actually start this relationship? So, what does your target most need or want? Right? We want to basically understand that component first. What questions do they want answered? What value can you provide? This is super important. What value can you provide in advance of them doing business with you? This helps really to generate a lot of reciprocity, and that's going to help them be more receptive to your message. What are you passionate about and uniquely qualified to teach? You can also consider offers that have nothing to do with your service. And in one of our case studies here, we're going to talk about that. I also want to say offer is a much different than a pitch. Okay. Offer gives value to the customer. It looks how you can establish value first with them, not what you can get or here's what I'm selling. Okay. So that's a big difference between offer and pitch. Give value. Very little commitment required. Remember how I told you earlier, so many people say, hey, I'll do a free consultation for you. If I don't quite know who you are yet, and I have to spend time with you, I'm going to sense that at the end of this, you're probably going to want to, I might not be ready for that consultation up front. So there's friction, and I'm feeling a little bit, well, like there is a commitment required for me to even just accept a free consultation. So that sometimes can come once they've been nurtured a little bit along the way. Addresses the obstacles and fears and helps build trust, helps bond. Why do I have a picture of a carnation? Well, many of you may have read the book by Robert Cialdini called Influence. And the carnation symbolizes one of the stories with the Hare Krishnas. I put that in this particular order because offer. They make an offer while you're walking through the airport. And this, I would say, probably back in the 70s, they worked to grow their influence and to solicit new members and expand and share their beliefs at airports. And they would hand out a carnation. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm rushing through the airport, the last thing I want really or think about needing is a carnation. Yet it was really effective for them to get people to stop and listen. So, what's at play here when somebody can give you something that you don't actually need? Remember the slide where I talked about tribes being so important and our tribal nature. Back in the days of living in a tribe, it was very important for you to establish and to play by the tribe rules. And if you took without giving back, that was actually a big no-no. And if you didn't reciprocate, pretty soon you might be kicked out of the tribe. If you didn't add value to the tribe, then pretty soon you could be kicked out. And living alone in the wild is almost a death sentence. So we are ingrained to want to give back when something's given to us, even if it's something we don't want. Now, I'm not advising you to give carnations out at the any chamber meetings, but you ultimately do want to find something that people see as valuable. People would get these carnations, they would walk just around the corner and they would drop them in the garbage bin. And guess what? They would go pick them up and hand them out to more people because it was just so effective at getting them to then stop and hear a bit of the message. That's an offer. Nurture. So the offer component comes, and that generally should bring people into the nurture sequence. And that is where you take them from being strangers towards being friends. You take them towards not knowing anything who you are, anything about you, and feeling more comfortable with you, your business, your offering. And I keep saying you. Uh, People buy from people, not from businesses. So I'm a huge advocate of getting out in front of your business and people connecting with those individuals and being part of that. Uh, for some clients, nurture can be a series of steps over a very long time, weeks, months, even years. In other cases, I have seen it go in just a presentation or a short discussion. You can go from feeling unfamiliar to feeling comfortable. So there are going to be some clients that need a longer nurture cycle, but people do develop comfort and trust as a process. So repeated exposure, usually nurture means more than just one quick hit interaction. Hey, want to buy from me? Hey, here's what I have to offer. No, it's a series of nurture, and you don't even have to be talking about what it is that you do. When people see you consistently over time, there's a level of comfort that's developed. But there are ways also to weave your business into there and be a little bit more proactive about getting your messaging out there during the nurture. I'm going to come back to this slide really quickly because I didn't do this intentionally, but this is just an example of how I tend to use tone, and it changes the style of how I approach things. Notice when I introduced myself, although Gabby did a fantastic job of introducing me and going through some of my credentials, I've noticed I tend to get a lot further in building rapport with people when I show them who I am as a person first. And so revealing here some things about me, not all of which are flattering. Trust me, being directionally challenged is a thing. And I've noticed that this is going to tell a lot more than where did I go to school? How long have I been doing business? Here's my, clients that I've worked with. So in a sense, just this slide alone had a nurture component towards telling people more about who I am. The observation period is something I go into in the tone book as well. What is that? As I mentioned, here I am talking to a group of people that are distributors for Ingersoll Rand, North Carolina. I was invited out to speak. And a lot of times when you're invited to speak, there's a cocktail party the night before, and you don't know anybody, and everybody's kind of got their guard up a little bit. But then you go and you talk, and they're now able to look at you, listen to you, probably judge whether or not they like you or what you're saying is true or true for them. And it's a completely different story. But there's no risk. They're sitting behind this barrier of safety as the audience. So you don't always get that in a one-on-one conversation with people. Sometimes they're like, okay, this person's looking at me, talking directly to me. If you can give people, either through video or speaking or things that you write or ways that you communicate online, the opportunity to observe you from the safety, maybe some level of anonymity, that is a great way of nurturing them along without calling them out and making them perhaps uncomfortable or feeling like they're at risk of making a decision that they're not ready to. When you can find offer, nurture, and target coming together in that apex, that shaded area where they mutually reinforce each other, that's even better. That means the offer is nurturing, and the offer and the nurture cycle really respect the target and nail what the target's key interests are. That area right there is where you start to see some fantastic, fantastic results. Lastly, exposure. I wish I could really say that the E of tone was put at the end for a reason. It's actually more convenient because I'm trying to break the mindset that, oh, I want to promote my business, so I'm going to run an ad. I get it, but if you take the time to come up with an offer and then a nurture series in addition, then you expose that, your results are just going to be that much larger. Exposure, yes. Where are you going to find your customers? What have your past customers had in common that is something that is targetable? These are elements. And the exposure is exposing the first piece of your overall path. It's not just saying exposure, here's my ad logo, buy from me. It's something a lot more of value, where you're educating your audience, you're giving away something for free. You'll start to see this a lot in TV commercials where, oh gosh, mesothelioma cases for attorneys are worth, bazillions of dollars. So there's something called Mesobook or mesobook.com. And you can bet that that is a way to teach people a little bit about whether or not they may or may not have a case, instead of just saying, hey, call our number. We can help you if you have a case with this. Lastly, I just want to kind of graphically illustrate here. We tend to see marketing and exposure. The typical client or the typical business sees marketing this way. I have my target. Those are the three black silhouetted items right there, the people. Then I have exposure. And then that's supposed to do all the work to get them to doing business with me. And what I outline in tone is that if you make it a process, each one doesn't have to pull quite as hard, but they mutually reinforce each other. If you kind of look at it as a buying thermometer, with each successive step of sharing information and working harder to develop that relationship where they're still safe, they haven't had to commit anything, you find that when they do finally call you, they are much more ready. I keep teasing this. We are going to get to the examples. Here's a tone map. Anybody after this, if you want to shoot me an email, there'll be an email on the last slide. We're not done, but this, as you can see, kind of looks like a folded paper napkin with 4 quadrants. That is the tone map. I would encourage you to either draw it yourself, or I can send you this graphic, and take a little bit of time to think about, okay, who is my target? Who is really my target? Don't just say everybody, because if you look back at past customers, you may start to see trends and patterns among who you've done business with that's really, really been advantageous, offer, nurture, and exposure. And you may not have a nurture sequence yet. You may not have a way to nurture. You may not have an offer, but be thinking about what those things could be. Take a look at other businesses that may have implemented this type of approach and see how you could adapt it, make it your own. Here's my first case study, my first example. And while he is a good friend, he has been doing this for a long time. But it so fits tone. This is Michael Williams, and he is a speech coach, specifically helping people who stutter. I almost did right there, or stammer. And what's really unique about this too is that he speaks extremely well and eloquently, and yet he used to have this problem as well. So right off the bat, he understands a lot about his audience, and he could probably help people with a lot of different speaking ailments, but he chooses to focus on that because his background really gives him a lot of credibility there. But there's another level of that. His target isn't just people who stutter or who stammer. He puts out tons of information for everybody, but what he's found over time is that it tends to be professionals, doctors, uh, engineers, project managers. And one of the main reasons why is because they get held back. They can see the next rung that they want to get to, but realize that they've got to be addressing people. They've got to be doing Zoom calls, conference calls. And so they have to overcome this. And there's value, right? Because if you can move up in your organization, you can make more money. So now there is a significant amount of cost to not addressing this issue. So over time, he narrowed his audience. What does he give away on his website? Boy, you go to the internet and you type in anything having to do with stuttering or stammering or exercise, anything you could possibly conceive of. And he typically is in that first page with one of his videos, webinars, books, newsletters. He's been there. Again, that's one of the other offers. Hey, want to talk to somebody who's not just studied this in school, but actually has gone through it? Nurture. Well, through his e-series, you can opt in, get his book, and he's going to send messages to you over time. As well, you could sit there and binge watch like Netflix. You can binge watch his videos where he's giving exercises. He's also talking to people who he's worked with and helped. I think he does a really great job, and it's hard to watch a few videos and not feel like you know him. So you get nurtured through that. As I mentioned before, his exposure tends to be a lot of Google organic. So he gets a lot of free traffic from people searching, and then his videos or his other content will tend to trickle up in the search engines. He does use Google paid as well, very effectively, and he tracks those results. And YouTube, which is owned by Google and sometimes populates Google's organic results. But he does a phenomenal job. Tips: take the time to build the path. One question too that he has struggled with quite a bit, and he ultimately said, I worried about cannibalizing my own sales by putting out too much good, solid, free content. He says, but every time I put more stuff out, the business grows. I get more clients, more exposure. Don't get me wrong, there are going to be people who maybe learn from your content and don't buy from you. That's fine. That's goodwill out to the universe, and I think that that's ultimately a good thing. And it's or maybe they just aren't ready. But there are a ton of people who actually just want somebody to be with them and to coach them, right? Or why would we bother to hire a trainer? Or why would we bother to work out in groups? There's a function of that that's really important beyond just sitting at home and watching videos or going through somebody's content. So he's done an amazing job. If you know anybody struggling with stuttering or stammering, he's fantastic, and I'd highly recommend you check him out. Here's Eleanor with Echo. Who doesn't know Eleanor? Emergency Care Help Organization. I've been working with them now for about 2 years. And I noticed that there were we talk a lot about donors, and we've had some really great success actually with their getting more donors in. And so that's now they're focused on giving away money because they have to start doing more of that. But here's their target: corporate and private donors. So the offer, here's what's really interesting about this: their offer is giving people the opportunity to help them. It took me a minute to wrap my mind around that, but it's actually a thing, and we'll get into it in another couple of slides. People want to contribute. People want to give, and so a lot of times, if you're interested, people are interested in volunteering. Sometimes they want to feel more connected to their community. They want to give. This is a great organization. And so you can Google, and a lot of times they will show up. You can volunteer for their food pantry. You can volunteer to work in their clothing shop. One of the things they noticed is that corporations would come to them and do a volunteer day where many of the people from the group or business would come in and volunteer. And that was great. And she would then send them a thank you note and say, would you like to come take a tour behind the scenes? And that's really where she gets an opportunity to meet with them one-on-one, tell about the philosophy, because what I think is so great about Echo is their focus is putting people back on their feet. There's a big misconception out there that people tend to draw services and want to leech off of a system perhaps, but in actuality, more people than not really have a lot of guilt receiving help. And so getting them to accept help can be a challenge sometimes, frequently. In any case, she has a chance to talk with them and show case studies of people who they've worked with and helped bring from here to here. Fantastic. She noticed that after they do that tour, many of them sign on to become donors or make a much larger donation than they had in the past or start giving money. So that has now become part of the overall process for those people who are part of their orbit and are giving or contributing their hard work and their time. This is a great way then to say, hey, we really appreciate it. Let's show you what your money is doing at work for us here. How do they get exposure? Well, they show up pretty well when you Google them for any of the charities in the Riverview, Brandon area. And if you wanted to volunteer, help out. And like I said, they will go there, people will volunteer, but then they notice that that was a critical element in the nurture sequence that used to happen kind of haphazardly, but has now become part of a process. And they're continuing to refine that and find ways that make people more comfortable with them, help them communicate their mission better. And guess what? It ultimately helps their organization to grow. I love this. During my talk with Eleanor, she said the quickest way to make a neighbor is to borrow a cup of sugar. What exactly does that mean? So, again, I talk about the book Influence, Cialdini. In his book, he talks about the fact, well, if you really want to endear somebody to you, give them something, and but if you really, really want to endear somebody to you, let them give you something. And that just kind of blew my mind. It's like, well, how are you going to, people have dissonance within them. And so when they contribute to something or they start doing something, they become much, much more likely to continue to double down on that and contribute to it. So as I dug, I found out that there was actually a quote that sort of says the same thing by Ben Franklin. It's called the Ben Franklin effect. In fact, he that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you yourself have obliged. So There are lots of ways to get people to help you. You can have them answer a questionnaire for you. You can have them give you tips. It's something you can dive more into. I just wanted to share that with you, but that was interesting to me that when they ask for a favor, oh, you know, when you'll see it, it's really annoying. I don't walk through the mall much anymore because of this, but those kiosks that line the center of the mall. Hey, sir, can I ask you a quick question? Hey, sir, can you tell me what time it is? You answer the question, they're not done. It's much harder to walk away after that initial engagement. Why? Because we want to be congruent with our actions and behaviors. Here's my next example. How many of you guys know Levin Brewing? Anybody? Okay. All right. Great little microbrew in Riverview. And they actually have a run club. And it's kind of, I like how contradictory it is. We're going to go out and run, and then we're going to drink beer and eat nachos. But that was the brainchild of Whitney Boland, and she's a realtor. So here's something that's kind of interesting about it. She's built this group of people that go out and run. Many started off non-runners. That was really interesting to me. I would be talking to somebody and I would, be really envious of how fast they were. And yeah, I started 2 years ago. I didn't run at all. But she's a realtor, and every time before our run, she'll stand up and she'll talk a little bit about what she has available for homes that she's selling or different availabilities and communities that she's become aware of. And then we go run. Well, guess what? It's every Monday at 6:30, and this group becomes pretty tight over time. And there's Whitney. You want to ask her a question? You can ask her a question. Hey, thinking about selling a home, what is the most natural thing to do? You've got this resource right there. And I think that what's interesting here, let's take a look at the tone map. Friendly Riverview folks who may want to buy or sell a home one day. That's her target. And then the offer is the Run Club, right? What does the Run Club offer? Community. So a way for people to connect, go out and run. It's a challenge. You get to exercise. And then beer. And I love it when exercise and beer can be next to each other, because conversation, nachos, tacos, whatever, it's something that people really look forward to. And frequently, Monday's a dead night of the week. So over time, you get repeated exposure. And what sort of nurtures that, and what I think is really cool, is it's so systematic. You get trust when you see somebody repeatedly over and over again. And if she were to help you buy or sell a home, you know where she's going to be next week at 6:30. And there's not that fear of, oh, who is this person? How long have they been in the community? But she runs it, she participates, she'll answer anybody's questions. And like I say, her exposure tends to be just before run, and it doesn't take but 2-3 minutes. And sometimes she'll promote or talk about a charity that she's working with. So I think that's great. She gave me some examples. Well, last year, 25% of her business came from Run Club, this group of folks. And she says, definitely be authentic and genuine, because it's a commitment. So don't pick some sort of nurture element or way to nurture customers that you may want to work with that you don't like or have a passion for. People can smell that a mile away. Enjoy giving free advice, because people, once you make yourself available, are going to start asking you questions. So again, if you don't like answering questions for people, then you're going to struggle a little bit. Pick something that you're passionate about and you like talking about. And again, I already hit on this, but people trust you more when they know where you're going to be next week. Getting in their orbit. This is a huge component. In this particular case, she's not doing real estate seminars. Well, I don't know. She might be, but at least it's not in this particular example where business is coming from. She has created this little universe where She gets to step up and be at the center occasionally, talk about what it is that she does, all while building familiarity with her audience. So let's recap really quickly. Relationships are the result of a process. I encourage people to stop and see that most customers and clients you've ever developed have come to you through a series of steps. Do you know what those steps are? Until you know what those steps are, you can't necessarily replicate them and build those stones to make the path easier. You don't want your clients scaling a mountain, okay, and having to trailblaze. There are some that will, that have that level of need, uh, but likely they've been nurtured in a way that you're not quite aware of yet if you haven't spent the time to really deep dive and research this. So, uh, creating a deliberate process of steps will help you connect with more people. If you're making sales now and you develop a system that helps to nurture with videos or using some of the other approaches we saw in these examples today from local Riverview businesses, then you'll start to see even better results. Advertise your tone offer, not your business. Give them an opportunity to come into your orbit and to teach and to give to them. Okay. Not just here I am, buy from me. Here's what I offer, buy from me. Uh, and make sure that the offer is requiring little or no risk. It might seem very low risk. In the example of Michael Williams, these people are scared. A lot of times there's a lot of self-consciousness surrounding their speaking. So before they even reach out and kind of say, hey, I need help, they need to over time see, okay, this is who I'm going to be talking to. They understand me. I'm not going to be judged. But without those elements, if he just said, hey, I can help you with your stuttering, give me a call, well, that fear doesn't go away. So you want to address that, and you want to realize that sometimes there are risks there that you're unaware of. Before I cut to our Q&A, I want to let you guys know, about a year ago, in January, I held an event at the venue called Leveraging Local. And it was a half-day event. It was really great. We talked a lot about Google and SEO and how you could promote your business locally and get more inbound local calls. Well, over the last year, I actually have developed that into an online course with 12 hours worth of video, 24/7, available online. There's a free series you can sign up for on the website if you go there, and it will take you through some of the key questions and things you need to do in order to really make your business stand out online. If you want more help, this course that I put together, again, 12 hours. Let's go to the next slide here. 12 hours of video content, step-by-step instructions. It's web-based. I talk about proven strategies to grow your online reviews. That is becoming critically important. It's a social cue to people that let them know that you're a safe business to work with. Google's factoring it in more now. How to optimize your business locally for Google, which is where a ton of calls are coming from. How to optimize on Yelp. People forget about Yelp, but just like Google, they've got their own algorithm, and there are things to do to help you show up better and start getting calls from that resource. How to make your phone ring. It's selling right now for $297, but through the end of the week, I'm offering it for $97 to the people here on this call with the promo code GRCC, GRCC, Greater Riverview Chamber of Commerce. And I hope you go give that a shout, or if you just want to check out the free e-series, then you can do that, and there's some benefit and value there. That's all I've got. So I'm going to open it up to questions right now. And I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed talking to you all, taking this time.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I don't have any questions in the chat right now, but if anyone has any, please post them. Or if you want to raise your hand, you can do that by hitting, down on in the manage participants, you can do that. Carrie, I saw a hand. Do you have a hand? All right, there you go. You can answer.
Thank you so much. I work for a rather small law firm in the Brandon Riverview area. My question is on the Google reviews versus Facebook reviews versus Yelp reviews. It seems difficult to ask our clients to fill out multiple reviews. Which would you say would be the best one or the top two or three to focus on?
Okay, it's a really great question. So I have a couple of follow-up questions before I answer that. Where do you currently get business from more?
Well, we do get business from online through Google, through either a search or through Google Maps. The Google search is much higher than
Okay.
Google Maps. We have been in the area for over 30 years, so we do have a large client base just by our brand. But compared to other law firms similar to our size, our review count is very low.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I have an answer to your question. I also want to say that the review count is important. So I'm glad you're starting to address it now, because the likelihood is that the competing law firms, it's not that they're better, obviously. It's that they proactively go after reviews more. But to the customer, believe it or not, who's looking at the Google Local or the snack pack, as we call it, of return companies, they often will judge by the review count. Doesn't all have to be 5-star, by the way. So typically what we'll do is we'll build a review page for our clients with icons for the platforms that they are participating in, and we let the customers decide. I'm not going to force a customer who likes to leave Yelp reviews to leave a Google review because it might not happen. I would much rather make it easy for them. If they want to leave it in more than one location, but generally you're pretty lucky if you get them to leave a review. So I would have them pick, and something like you could do a subdomain like reviewus.yourlawfirm.com, or you could do yourlawfirm.com/review us, something like that. The next part is developing a process. Whose responsibility is it to get the reviews, to ask for the reviews?
Are you asking me that
Yes,
question?
I'm sorry, Carrie. Sorry, yes.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am the marketing director, so it has fallen on my shoulders. I have sent emails out to clients, um, but I think I'm not face to face with them. I think it has to be a broader spectrum, um, in my opinion, than just one person trying to get that information, get those reviews.
You're not wrong. I agree. The face to face. I mean, when I work with my industrial clients, I typically want the boots on the ground to be asking for the review. That does help, but I've also seen it really. Do you know Jeremy Brook Pressure Washing?
Yes, I do. Very.
Great guy and just dominant. I did an interview with him and I actually recorded it and we talked a lot about his review strategy. But I hired him about, oh gosh, 6 months ago to pressure wash. And one of his
Mhm.
guys reached out to me afterwards and said, "Hey, would it be okay if we requested a review?" And I thought that was kind of neat too, because he got my pre-approval and it let me know to be looking for it. I would additionally tell you my experience with collecting reviews is nobody responds to the first request. The response or the review comes from the follow up or the other follow up. And there's software actually that can help with this in a non obnoxious way. But yeah, reviews are important. So if you've got two firms, firm A with 50 reviews and firm B with 100, and I'm just looking who I'm going to call first, a lot of times people just make that decision there. Then they look at the reviews, and if there's a negative review left, how did the business owner respond to that? We all expect over time, yeah, there's going to be some unhappy customers. How are they treated? Are you answering negative reviews? Sometimes that can become one of your biggest selling points, to see how your business handled an unhappy customer, because that unhappy customer could be me, and I want to see how I'm going to be treated. Uh, but those elements, I mean, we talk a bit about it in the series that I just plugged on leveraging local. But those are my recommendations for you. Definitely decide on what your process is going to be. There is software that can help, and to automate it, so you're not having to send out the follow-ups. And if you're not comfortable with that, or it blows up and you get, people don't like it, then you can shut it off. But if you're looking at a company that's not been around as long as you have and has more reviews, they have a process. And I would highly encourage you to develop one, because that becomes a moat around your business, and reviews pay big dividends.
Okay. Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
So, Jason, I know with COVID and the pandemic over the last year, what you talked about with the tone, a lot of the businesses on here, I'm assuming that that has changed for them. They are doing business a little bit differently than they were a year ago. So,
Hmm.
what kind of advice would you give to the businesses that have had to really navigate through changing, their target and how they expose themselves and that kind of thing?
Golly, these are tough times, and it has really, a lot of the customers that I work with on the industrial side, I was surprised, but they had record-breaking years. They were essential services. In other cases where they haven't, I think businesses communicating that they understand what they're going through, recording a video. Like, if we had an example, it might help me. Can you think of a particular type of business that we might use as our example
I
here?
mean, we can just use the Greater Riverview Chamber of Commerce. I mean, we used to meet in person for most of our events, and that's how we connected, and that's how our members got connected, and how they made referrals, and how we grew. And we've really had to pivot and reimagine and rediscover a lot of our tone components on how we target our members and how we, work with them and make sure that they're getting what we, would like to provide them and providing values. So, um, if that's a good example, we could just roll with that.
It is. It is. There's pieces of this that are tough to work around. I'm kind of a combination introvert, extrovert. I like to be extroverted, but if I'm, boy, there is a piece that is missing from a Zoom, right? And if we're all socially distanced, but I do like, for example, this series is a way to bring people in. What do people need? Or doing a series that talks about businesses surviving COVID. What different businesses are doing, what restaurants are doing. There's restaurants out there with great food that don't have an online menu ordering system. Or during early COVID, I noticed there was this pizza shop in Bloomingdale that I would go to, and literally nobody was allowed in the store and nobody was allowed to eat there. So they were lined up around the block. Well, as things evolved and as people got smarter, they started to say, okay, what's your license plate number? We'll bring it out to you. Online ordering. So you could nurture the audience, show that you really understand what they're going through by compiling information of surviving COVID. I mean, that provides value. Giving people what you're doing right now. I think this marketing series is great. I hope it's helpful to people, but there are some ways in which we're limited. I'm telling you, as an extrovert, these are tough times, but there is some connection here, and maybe finding out, hey, what can we do? What are you guys struggling with? And putting that out. And like you said, reimagining, how can we do this virtually? How can we get people that connection? Maybe setting up a buddy system for people who are struggling, that they can talk with. I might not be able to meet with 50 of my closest chamber members, but we can I can find one, connect on the phone, and we can share ideas together, a support group for businesses. There's lots of ways that you can deliver value within the framing of COVID. Does that make sense?
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It looks like we only got about 5 minutes left. If there's anybody that has a question, we can take one more question before we close out today. Just if you have a question, we could ask for the group. If you want to just raise your hand, then we can get you unmuted.
If as I was talking here, I mean, what I hope this group sees as they start to go through, be particularly conscious of the process. How have you hired businesses before? What different steps? It wasn't just the here's the business card, I'm going to call them. It tends to be steps. So if you can take that decision and start looking at your own decision making process as you work with other companies, but then also encourage your customers or the clients that you've become more comfortable with working with, maybe you have a long-term relationship, say, hey, you considered us for a while. What tell me a little bit about the pattern or the thought process that eventually led to you before you picked up the phone and called us, and start writing those down as steps. But you'll start to see this existing. You will start to see businesses that use tone, and they don't call it that. I mean, nurturing customers and promoting offers and things like that are have been around now for ages and are being used effectively by a lot of businesses that have never heard of tone. But tone helps provide the framework, and it gives you a quick and dirty way to outline these elements that are critical and will really help your business grow. So I hope that that's helpful.
I think that your entire presentation was super helpful today for the businesses that are on this call. As a reminder, I put Jason's contact information in the chat box for everyone to have. I will be sending out an email with the meeting recording along with Jason's contact information, and maybe some more information on that leveraging local that he spoke about a little bit. Just so you guys can get your hands on that if that is a value for you. We appreciate Jason's time and you guys joining here and spending the hour with us to hopefully get some very educational and informational information for your business and for yourself, because we know the last year has been a very tough and challenging year. So um, as mentioned, this is the first session of 6 in our marketing and branding series. So I know that we've got Marie Gilmore on here with the Osprey Observer. She'll be hosting a session in a few weeks, and Julie Arndt with Minuteman Press will be hosting a session in a few weeks. And we will be sure to get that information out to you guys. But thank you so much, Jason, for being here today and providing all of this information for our investors. It's hopefully really educational and helpful for them. I know that I even learned some things today as well. So if you want to close out, we have about 3 minutes left, and then we'll go ahead and close out for the day.
Well, Gabby, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity, and everybody who showed up here today. I really, really wanted to just give value and help share things with you that have mattered and mattered to businesses that and organizations that I've worked with. But hang in there. I feel like we've gotten over the peak of this COVID nonsense, and hopefully now things will start to gradually get better. I invite people to reach out to me and share any feedback that you may have had about today's presentation or questions. If you didn't feel comfortable, you know, sharing them here in the middle of in the group, I invite you to reach out. And I hope everybody's hanging in there. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you guys. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.